14 years ago, I came here to Denmark to test drive a really exciting new car. It was called the Nissan Leaf. It was the first production car that was built as an electric car, not converted from something else. I've come back now, 14 years later, to see this, the brand new Nissan Leaf. This is everything electric cars.
Our 3 free YouTube channels on EVs and clean tech are funded by our fun-packed test drive-tastic events in Farnborough, London, the Southwest, the North, Melbourne and Sydney. Next up, Everything Electric Melbourne. And new for UK viewers, you can buy a battery electric vehicle or more at everythingelectric.store. Back to the episode.
So I think the original Nissan Leaf had a certain look, didn't it? And it still does. They're still on the road. Here's an interesting fact. 75% of first generation Nissan Leafs, those who were sold up to about 2012, are still on the road, still in use. There's a bit of a clue at how well made this car is. But this is the new Nissan Leaf. It looks really, really different. Here's I think the key difference for me is if you had the original Nissan Leaf that I have, the 2011 one, and you drove really, really carefully in the summer, not on a windy day and not up any hills, you could get 85 miles out of it. You could do that. It was really difficult, but it wasn't impossible. This car does 300 miles more than that. Now, to achieve that, 385 miles, I think you'd have to drive this very carefully, not on motorways, in somewhere like the Netherlands or Denmark where it's quite flat. But the fact that they've managed to add 300 miles on a car that isn't 300 times bigger or heavier is a really amazing illustration of how much this technology has developed. So this car represents that full kind of leap of technology from back in 2010 when the Leaf was really made and developed to now, to 2025, where this car is just remarkably better. And I love the original one. So this one being better is really special. When I first saw it, I went, oh, it looks like all the other sort of bubbly, cars of this era. It's sort of basically the similar shape, but it's got a few key features. I really do like the lights on the front. I think work really well. The design of it, it's got opening and closing vents. So if it overheats, it cools it down. If it's very cold, it keeps it warm. All those things. It's got some really clever heat pump technology to minimise the energy use. But also in the original Leaf, there was no heating or cooling of the battery, which really compromised the range, really compromised the battery. This has got everything sussed. So there's the battery heating. The battery's heated if it's cold, and it's cooled if it's hot. They use the heat from the battery and the motors to heat the cabin, or they use the air conditioning and the cooling to cool the motor and the batteries if it's really hot. So some really clever, one system that controls the heat and the temperature of the whole car, batteries, motor and cabin, which I think is genius. Very cool aero wheels, and also interestingly, because we're doing a lot of work with them at the moment, Hankook tyres. They have kind of set the bar for really good tyres for electric vehicles, longer lasting, quieter, really good grip, just different materials they're using in them. So it's fitted with Hankooks all round. So the back, this looks really different to the original Leaf. This incredibly blacked out window, it looks like you can't see through it, but you can, but I think that's really clever. The little wing here is, I'm sure it has enormous benefits for the aerodynamics. It has got a very, very low drag coefficient. CD 0.25, I think it is. It's very low. It's a very, very slippery car. One thing that's also very different to the Nissan Leaf, it didn't used to open itself. And also, this is very, very spacious, the boot / trunk. 437 litres. Obviously, if you put the seats down and they go down flat, then it's over 1,000 litres. I don't even know what it is. It's big. It's big enough to put stuff in. That's for sure. And then I like that, actually. That's a good thing. I've used that on other cars. It's got to close the lid or lock it. So you can do either. But I think that's quite a useful little feature. The lights are very nice. These have a really cool sort of 3D effect. I think it is actually deep lights, but it looks like there's lights going off into the distance. It's a bit Tron. Here's one thing that the old Leaf had that the new one doesn't. No, the old one had a rear wiper. on the rear window. This one doesn't. I assume that's because this is super slippery glass that's made of a new kind of material that repels water and you don't need it. Or they just didn't want to put one on. I don't know which way around that is. The one thing I've had to replace on my old Leaf 2 times is the rear wiper blade. They're really expensive. Intriguing little detail here. The only other car that I can think of, and I'm sure people will comment and tell me all the other ones that have got this, but that's the rear door handle. I've only ever seen that on the Renault Zoe. Well, this car is kind of related. It's a family relationship, probably cousins with the original Renault Zoe, because the Zoe came out slightly after the original Nissan Leaf, and that had a little door handle up there. But I quite like the look of it because it just keeps the bodywork really smooth. Here's another little feature. So this little symbol here on the charge door is an Easter egg that's hidden all over the car, and it's a thing that Nissan are really keen on. It's basically 2 and 3, which in Japanese sound a bit like Leaf. I can't remember how it works. It was explained to me. But that having a charge port there, I think is really good. And I like the fact that you've got doors as opposed to a little bit of rubber on a thing that goes that you cover one of them up. They've both got little doors. Also, the position of this, just saying, if you did drive into a Tesla supercharger, this is in a perfect position. Nose in, plug it in, job done. Very nice. Beginning to get you used to it. There's a couple of little screen things I'd love to be able to find. I'm going to ask the people at Nissan exactly about this. Basically, like a little bit of just simple information about how much energy I'm using, how many miles I'm doing to the kilowatt hour, 100 kilometers to the all that stuff. Can't quite find that on here yet. And I know it's going to be there. That's what's frustrating, but I haven't quite found it yet. But I would say the ride is really, really comfortable and easy. The speed control thing, I'm going over a little speed hump now. So it just deals with that so well. I mean, it's just very, very confident, I think that is, which, is not a big step up from the original Nissan Leaf, because the original Nissan Leaf was really extraordinarily competent vehicle. It just didn't go very far. That was its real drawback, because that was dictated by the battery technology at the time. It had no heating and no cooling of its batteries. Hello, we all know that that's very important. This does have that. All those little drawbacks that it had have been completely, they've completely disappeared. Yes, it's firm, isn't it? It feels very solid. That's the thing. It feels very one single tight unit with some very nice flexible suspension. So it doesn't, because occasionally still now you'll come across a car that's a bit, the only way I can describe it is, it's got a bit of a wobble and it's a bit bibbly bobbly. This is like a chunk with some nice Does that describe how the vehicle feels? Because that is how it feels to me. Okay, so now this is in sport. Yeah, I mean, it goes faster. Let's leave it at that. It's not breathtaking. It's fine. And it has a lot more low-end oomph. But it's not like, you're not, but if you're buying this car to have a sports car experience, you're going to be disappointed. That's not what this car is about. So on eco mode, if I do the same thing, it's a very subtle difference. I think I would have it in eco, because it's one of those. It's also got a throttle that when you press it all the way down, it feels that there's a stop, and then you've got beyond that, you've got a little bit more. So it's really good for overtaking. It gives you full power, that last little bit. And I don't know, it's bound to have a really cool name. So here's a little bit of history for you. I'll keep it as brief as I can. When the original Nissan Leaf came out, the cost to make a kilowatt hour of battery was about $1,500. And today, the cost of this is just making the cells, it's not making the battery pack, but the cells cost about $1,500 back in 2011. Today, the average price is between $60 and $80. So that tells you something. Massive reduction in cost. Now, they also have to be put in a pack. The packs are very sophisticated. They've got heating and cooling. They've got a massive amount of safety systems, really important. But this Nissan Leaf has a 75 kilowatt hour battery. So that is, I can't work out how many times bigger. So it's 3 times bigger. 3 times bigger battery than the original Leaf, more than 3 times bigger, but far more efficient. So the way that the electricity is used from the battery into the motor is more efficient. All the hardware and software that controls the car much more efficient. The heating, when you turned the heater on in the original Nissan Leaf, you lost about 25 miles of range. Well, you didn't have many miles of range to start with, so you drove it with thick gloves and thick coats and a scarf, and you didn't have the heating on in the winter because it completely shagged the battery. This one, when you put the heating on or turn it off, you cannot see any difference in the range. It maybe does make a kilometre of difference, but it really doesn't register. So that technology has moved on so much, and it's a really important point because so many people still to this day say you throw the batteries away after 3 years, and if you turn the heating on, you can only drive 2 miles. Both those were slightly fictitious even in the originally. You never have to throw batteries away. That is the most absurd lie that Jeremy Clarkson planted, and it's still used to this very day. 14 years later, it's utter nonsense. But the heating systems in those early electric cars really did have a big impact on the battery. That is no longer the case. And in the case of this car, this battery that we're sitting on top of is going to last much longer than the car. That is for certain. And what I'm doing here is I'm comparing it with the original Leaf, not with other cars that are being made at the moment that are of similar size, similar specs. Forget them, I'm not interested in them. I'm comparing it with the original Leaf. Turn it on, there's an on button. It doesn't just come on when you get in like lots of cars do now. Nice opening sequence. Nissan Intelligent Mobility, very nice. So I currently have 373 kilometers of range, 78% of the battery. And the sat-nav, which is Google Maps, with all the additional software on top from Nissan, which tells you where charging stations are, whether they're available, how fast they will operate, what the speeds they operate at, all those things. That's very clever. But I mean, I say it's very clever, it's really useful. I've got to say Tesla were doing that probably 12, 13, maybe 14, certainly 13 years ago. But that's a different story because I'm not comparing it with a Tesla of any sort. From my fairly limited experience of driving it, it has one huge advantage over a lot of cars when you first get in them. It has 2 buttons that you press, that one to stop all the pinging and ponging and warnings and everything. You press that one and OK, and it all stops. It doesn't ping at you. So legally the car has to have that to be homologated to European safety standards. But the fact that it's that easy to turn it off is a huge blessing. In my MG4 that I drive regularly, I get in, I start it, I press the screen. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 presses to turn off the truly appalling lane keeping assistant. And you have to do it every time you get in the car, and it is a real curse on that car that there isn't one button that you can turn off, because basically it doesn't work. This car, one, you can turn that stuff off so that it isn't annoying, unless you want it and you find it helpful. Obviously you leave it on. But for example, the lane keeping assistant I experienced on the motorway when we came up here, really good. It just goes on the steering wheel. It isn't beeping, it isn't bopping, it isn't flashing things. It just reminds you to keep in the lane if you slightly veer out of it. So that side of it is very good. It's got haptic buttons for heating and cooling, which, I mean, they don't annoy me too much, and this is an interesting thing that was pointed out for me. But there is this slight ridge here in front of it, so when you go to do something on the screen, you're not accidentally touching that. You've got to really deliberately turn it off. That's quite easy to use, and it does feel like you wouldn't accidentally touch it. Screen is very, very quick, responsive. So there you can see where we are in Denmark. We're actually up that way, aren't we? No, we're not. We're up that way. We're actually up that way, and we're on this little bit of Denmark, and what we can see over the other side of the sea here is Sweden. So those sort of things are, that all works really well, and also it's very, very familiar. I mean, 99% of people who drive the car are going to be familiar with Google Maps. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I honestly don't think I would use it if I was driving in this. This is really, really good, and I use it mainly for Google Maps. That's what I use in the car. Really good. dash in front of you here, it's now warning me that I'm not fully paying attention. So it does do that, but you just turn that off with one of the OKs. It's got a really good heads-up display. All these things were not available in the original Nissan Leaf. So the heads-up display is really clear, very simple. It just gives you speed and directions, basically. That's all it does. I still, you know, I've seen other cars with more sophisticated interpretations of energy use, of remaining battery, of how you're, you know, those sort of things. This is still, I'm not overly thrilled with that. The drive stuff, no fancy stuff at all. It's park, reverse, neutral, drive. 4 buttons, it's simple as that. You can change, it's got really good one pedal driving, they call it e-pedal. That was the first car I ever drove with proper full-on one pedal driving was a Nissan Leaf. And this has got it, you really don't, if you've got that on, you don't touch the brakes unless it's an emergency. I think everything else is on the steering wheel and it's pretty obvious. You know, you would take 10 minutes to learn how to use all of it really well. It's all pretty simple. One of the things I noticed straight away is there's a little speaker in the headrest that's quite quiet for the rest of the car, but it tells you which is the voice on the navigation, which I generally turn off. But it's so discreet, and it's an English woman's voice, and she does not make any attempt to pronounce Danish street names in a sort of Danish way. It's just really clunky English description of very complicated names. I think the materials in here, I like this little touch, the bit of cloth around here, which sort of matches the colour of the seats. This is all, you know, pleather. There's not real leather, but I mean, I tell you the two things which are true about first gen Leaf and third gen Leaf, this one. The seats are incredibly comfortable, really, really comfortable. On a long drive, they are exemplary, and the seats in my old car, you know, they're battered. They've done, you know, getting on for 81,000 miles, it's coming up to that. They're amazing. The interior has been really badly looked after by myself and my daughter now, who drives the car a lot. You know, they've really held up incredibly well, and these seats are just supremely comfortable. So now, the sunroof, I think, is really cool. The original Gen 1 Nissan Leaf didn't have a sunroof. This has got a sunroof, big glass roof over the whole cabin, and you sort of think, well, if it's really hot and sunny, that's going to be really intense coming through that. Well, no, because there's no shade. You can't pull a shade over. There is no shade. That's too heavy. That uses too much energy in the motor. Nissan don't like that. No, they have changed to a polymer dispersed liquid crystal, PDLC, and that is inside the glass. And it's an incredibly cool technology that I've only ever seen elsewhere on the Porsche Taycan, a really high-end luxury sports car. Now, I know that someone's going to say to me, the such and such Chinese car has got that and the car only costs £4. But at the moment, that's the first time I've seen it other than in a Taycan. And you can gradually increase or decrease the amount of glass that's opaque. I mean, it looks really good. And it says Leaf on it as well, which is kind of cool. Let's have a look in the back. Oh, old man gets in back of car without grunting. Ting! 1 point. Very comfy. Yeah, as I was saying about this colouring, apparently this is not popular. I think it looks really nice. Not popular in Europe. So you will be able to get this in a completely dark material without the light bits. This is very popular in the States, apparently. Very spacious, very comfy. I mean, that is my driving position. I am now just under 6 foot. I used to be 6 foot in my youth, shrunk a bit. But look, loads of room here. USB ports there. Has it got a little thing? I think it has. Oh, nice. Cup holders. Oh, that is nice. That's luxury. Nice big pocket there. Plenty of headroom and also amazing sunroof. So we've turned the special magical crystals off, and so it's clear at the moment. It's very nice to see the beautiful Danish sky. Lovely. No, this is good. I really like this car. I know I often get criticised for saying I really like things, but this one is special because the Leaf holds a special place in my heart. And I think they've done an amazing job bringing this to the 2025s and 26s. I think people will be really impressed with it. So there's two versions of the new Nissan Leaf. One has a 75 kilowatt-hour battery, that's the one we're driving, 380 mile range, WLTP, that's what they claim. I don't think that's very realistic unless you're driving super carefully. But I've read one report of someone who's done over 350 miles on one charge, and they did manage it. So it's clearly in that range. It's well over 300 miles, which is incredibly impressive for a car of this price range. There is a 52 kilowatt hour version, which is cheaper, and that in the UK with the government grant that it will be eligible for eventually, we haven't heard definitively, that will knock it to under £30,000, and that will have around, I think, a 220 mile range. So very adequate even for a smaller battery. I think partly that is to do with all the other technological advances that we've seen in the last 11 years in terms of efficiency, in terms of software sophistication, in terms of battery management, battery heating and cooling, the way the car is heated. All those things have had a really big impact on increasing the range. Plus the tyres, as I mentioned, the Hankook tyres this is on, very low rolling resistance, really hard wearing tyres, plus the aerodynamics of the vehicle. All those things assist in increasing the range a great deal. Both vehicles charge at 150 kilowatts max, which is a really important thing. The original Leaf charged at 50, so it charges 3 times faster. So the car is built on the CMF-EV platform, which is a dedicated electric platform. It is the electric skateboard design. It's the same thing. It has been used in the Nissan Aria. It's a very similar design. It's got lots of tweaks, different suspension, different, there's quite a few improvements they've made on that. But basically, it's a very well tried and tested electric platform. It is new, but it's not like not been used. It's been used a great deal. They've done enormous amount. They've done like millions of miles of testing on it. Well, we have had a really picturesque drive all over this particular peninsula in Denmark, and it's been gorgeous. We've had lovely weather. It's just about to rain, so we're really thrilled. I just really am blown away by this car. I've just checked the fuel economy, and I've been getting 3.6 miles to the kilowatt hour, which is 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. I just did the calculation. So that's not brilliant, but it's an indication of the kind of real world range. So it's 300 miles-ish. Is this car is going to do. So that's really good. There's also a really good setting I really enjoy. You just pull the right-handed regen lever and hold it, and it does automatic regen. And you go, well, what's it doing? And then you're driving along a straight road, it's not doing anything. If a car slows down in front of you, it uses regen to slow you down. You don't touch the brake. It effectively switches one pedal driving on and off. The rest of the time you'll just coast if you take your foot off the throttle. You're not getting any regen. But also it uses the map to know when to slow down. So we were coming up to a T-junction, the car slowed down, I did nothing. I took my foot off the throttle, didn't touch the brake, and the car and stopped. That is genius. I've not seen that in any other car anywhere else. I'm sure someone will tell me that it exists, but I don't care because I like this one. Anyway, that's all. Please do subscribe to the Everything Electric Cars channel. Please come along to our live events if you're anywhere near where any of them are going on. The next one's going to be in Melbourne in Australia, and it's going to be amazing. There's loads of cars there. Sadly, not this one yet, but in the future, we'll definitely get it there. Tell your mates about it, and as always, if you have been, thank you for watching. Now visit electricvehicles.expert, where you can follow everything electric and keep current with Clean Technica, The Driven, Electrek, and many more.